Welcome back to Review Crew. I'm Justin.
I'm Owen.
And this is our review of Sound of Metal. Enjoy the trailer.
You sounding great.
Yeah, right.
What? You telling me you weren't feeling it? You were in it.
We don't need to put them all out.
I know, but we just need to film.
Your hearing is deteriorating rapidly.
We'll come back. Till then, Lou, we just keep going, okay?
No.
Lou,
No.
let's play tomorrow. Let's see what it's like, okay? I'm gonna be like a click track. You can play to me.
You have to understand, your first responsibility is to preserve the hearing you have.
I can't hear you. Do you understand me? I can't. I'm deaf. I'm deaf.
I found a place.
I think it's important that you stay here with us right now, Ruben. We're looking for a solution to this. Not this.
I need you to wait for me, okay? You're it for me, Lou. You're my heart. You're it for me, okay? You gotta wait for me. Trying to save my life.
Ruben, the world does keep moving. It can be a damn cruel place. But those moments of stillness, when this crappy, mundane world suddenly becomes radiant and magnificent, all the fear is gone. That place will never abandon you.
Welcome back to Review Crew. So, Sound of Metal. What did you think about it? What were your first thoughts, first impressions?
Yeah, so I saw this movie back in December for the first time, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I watched it for the second time a few days ago, and I think it definitely elevated my opinion of it. I think it's a really poignant character piece about this drummer named Ruben who plays with his girlfriend Lou in this black metal outfit, and one day he loses his hearing, and it kind of throws him into this crisis of what he's supposed to do the rest of his life, and while he's kind of desperately clinging to his past and trying to reclaim what he's lost. So yeah, I thought Riz Ahmed did a fantastic job as this drummer, and there's some really compelling supporting characters, specifically this man he meets at this at a home for the deaf named Joe, who teaches him a lot of important lessons about moving forward and kind of dealing with the past and stuff like that. What were some of your initial thoughts?
Yeah, so like you said, I thought Riz Ahmed did an amazing job. We were talking about it before. He's able to convey so much emotion through just his eyes and those kind of maniacal, crazy eyes. Throughout the movie, you're able to just empathize with him as he tries to cling on to his past, both with his hearing and his relationship with Lou, which is kind of going down the drain a little bit as he's not able to perform with her in shows, and he does end up going to this kind of out of the way, just remote home for the deaf, where he tries to adjust to this new life while simultaneously clinging on to what hearing he does have left.
Totally. And I want to talk about the scene where he actually loses his hearing. It's really interesting, I think, because it kind of comes out of nowhere. He's just kind of standing around with these people that they're packing up. They're laying out the merch table for an upcoming concert that night, and his hearing just cuts. And all of a sudden, the sound in the movie, which I'm sure we'll get into the sound design, changes very drastically because we're kind of aligned with Ruben's hearing, so we kind of are hearing what he's hearing, which is not much once his ear goes. So I think it was like a really just clever use of sound to kind of just get us into like the headspace of a character, and it's startling and it's kind of like terrifying too because we feel just like right there with him.
Oh yeah. I was definitely able to empathize with Ruben a lot because just going through this very traumatic experience of trying to please your girlfriend and all the people in your life who are in your past, and it's kind of alluded to that Ruben is a drug addict, getting over this addiction with this routine of exercise, eating right, and music, and also his girlfriend. And so while he's kind of grappling with the loss of his hearing, he's also grappling with just everything else in his life suddenly changing. And I thought all the scenes in the deaf home are really fascinating, especially the character of Joe, who is trying to convince him that he does have something to live for beyond just what he contributes in terms of like his artistry and music, and I guess his relationship with Lou, because she says outside visitors aren't allowed. You're not allowed to talk to other people who aren't deaf right now, because right now you need to focus on yourself and know that you are a valued member of society and you do have a purpose.
Totally. I really like that it's framed around the idea that like he is like a recovering addict, because I think a lot of the movie is about like Ruben like regressing to like these old behaviors of like trying to just like we like kind of cling on to like that past and not really being able to move forward and like be comfortable with like his current state. But like going through the deaf home, he is able to learn how to be present and like live, like Joe says, like live in those moments of stillness. I love the line where he says like those moments of stillness when you're able to just like be okay with you and yourself in like any given moment. That's like the kingdom of God. And I thought that was like it's an interesting way of putting it, because like I feel like people who are addicts are like fear like abandonment, fear like not having a home, not having somewhere like safe to be, so they like resort to like drugs to like restore that feeling. So I think the way Joe appeals to that aspect of Ruben's personality is super interesting.
Oh yeah.
But do you want to talk more about the sound? Do you want to talk about like the first scene, like the music and like how just like the music scene and what you thought of Riz Ahmed's drumming?
I mean, he's an amazing drummer.
And he's a rapper too.
Wow, I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, I think MC Riz. he really has. He's like several music videos and.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I could definitely see, how music played into his life. Ruben's character in the movie, but also it wasn't a huge aspect of the film aside from it being part of his hearing loss. The only scenes where he's playing drums is like the very first scene, and then after he goes to the doctor, talks about his hearing, and his doctor's kind of like, well, you should, focus on preserving the hearing that you do have, and then he just up and plays another concert and, further deteriorates his hearing. But yeah, what did you think about his relationship with Lou and kind of, how she helped ground him after he battled with drug addiction and stuff, and he's entering this new chapter of his life.
Yeah, no, something that like I think really defines the relationship early on in the movie is when he's like about to leave and Lou like really like kind of like with the Riz Ahmed like bug eyes, she's like looking at him and she's like, if you go down, I'm gonna go down with you. Like if they acknowledge like if she starts using again, or if he starts using again, she's gonna start using again. So I think it was like a really difficult, but ultimately like it was like the right decision for them to split up and have Ruben go to that home. And it is really sad because I don't think we really watch their relationship deteriorate. We kind of just have like these glimpses into like these moments, but it is sad at the end, or we kind of like, I guess, no, I just contradicted myself. I mean, they do kind of show the deterioration through when Ruben goes to like the computer and he kind of like sees the videos of Lou like performing without him and moving on, like forging her own career. So it is sad, and it's sad watching Ruben like, again, like desperately like cling on to Lou and kind of like hope that like one day they will kind of like join back together again. Yeah. But it is great because he does find resolution like when they're laying in the bed at the end, and he's able to like forgive her for moving on and kind of just like acknowledge that like it wasn't really like meant to be them two like musically together.
Yeah, for sure.
So those are some of our initial thoughts. We will be right back with more discussion. So I want to talk a little bit more about like the deaf home and Ruben's relationships to the people in that home. What did you think of the scenes? What scenes in the deaf home were most compelling for you?
Oh, well, I mean, almost all of them were very, touching and made me super empathetic, empathize with Ruben and the other deaf people, who he's simultaneously like kind of a mentor to them just in terms of like life, because he's had such a, dark checkered past and a tumultuous past few years coming clean, with drugs, but then also losing his hearing. And then the kids are also kind of mentors to him, because most of them have come to terms with their deafness already and accepted it, while Ruben is kind of trying to balance what hearing he does have left with becoming a member of this new community. And so he's kind of getting his arms pulled to each side, and a lot of the scenes in the deaf home are very convincing, at least to me, that he should just kind of accept it. And I think that's the general impression that the first half of the movie leaves on you, is that he will come to terms and accept it and feel part of this community. But then, of course, his betrayal of Joe is really just very heartbreaking, especially after this touching scene where him and another deaf boy, who I think had a little argument earlier in the movie,
I think he's like yelled at by the teacher. Or
yeah,
something.
yeah, he's a bit of a troublemaker.
Yeah.
They, have a touching moment where Ruben is kind of playing the drums on a metal slide while the kid puts his ears to it and, is able to hear, music. And so that makes his departure of the home all the more upsetting to me.
Totally, because he's so dead set on like getting that implant and like just restoring that sense of himself that he's lost. And it is so sad when he does betray Joe, because by that point in the movie, you're probably more aligned with Joe than you are with Ruben. You want him to stay. But I'd like to think that like after the events of the movie, Ruben will go back and like kind of restore his place in that community. Because I don't think that he's like done there necessarily. He seems like a gifted teacher. It seems like the kids really like him, and maybe he could have like a career as a teacher or something. I'd like to think that.
Oh, yeah, for
It was
sure.
a sad movie. Yeah.
But yeah, talking about the title of the movie, Sound of Metal, obviously, it's referring to Ruben and Lou's heavy metal band that he, is part of the reason why he loses hearing, but also just the screeching, awful noise of the implants that don't really work all the way. I think that scene right before the movie ends, where he's in Paris by himself, just overcome with all the, the emotions of what's happened, but also just the overwhelming sound of the city, combined with this like distorted, like horror-like sound that he's hearing. Really, just it was uncomfortable, and it was very satisfying when he took the hearing aids out and is able to finally like get some peace and quiet.
Totally, yeah, and I think it's great because it calls back to like that lesson that Joe teaches him when he's like forced to sit down and write every single idea that's like floating around and like really like bothering him in his head, and then only then can he like be still. And like in that last scene, he totally finally gains like that sense of stillness and is comfortable with himself and like his role in society and how he perceives himself and everything.
Yeah. So what did you think about the relationship between Ruben and Lou, but beyond that, like Lou's father, and the scene, the dinner party where Lou is kind of away from Ruben and he's on his own with these terrible ear implants, and he's just kind of uncomfortable. What did you think about that?
I thought it was interesting. There's not much context given, but it seems like Lou and her father are very close. I think it's mentioned that Lou's mother passed away, and also I get the sense that Lou's father isn't totally approving of Ruben. I think he's very much happy about where his daughter is in her life right now, and he doesn't necessarily welcome Ruben. I mean, he's very welcoming to Ruben, but I think you can like get the sense from his demeanor that like he's not totally welcome, or like he's not home, like, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely like, while we see Ruben as a positive influence on Lou and a good person as the protagonist, it's, I think, alluded to that Lou's father, definitely doesn't approve and maybe sees Ruben as like a toxic person coming up from her past to kind of, I don't know, keep her down and maybe not have her best interests in mind.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's a very, very tough relationship. But I think ultimately, I do love the moment when Ruben tells Lou that it's okay that she has kind of moved on, because it just allows him to move on as well. It was really
So,
cool. Yeah.
Would you recommend this movie? What would you rate it like out of 10?
For sure. I'd probably rate this movie like a 8.5 out of 10. I think the performances are fantastic. The cinematography is really good. Like you said, it's like a very realistic movie, so like a lot of the colors, yeah, it just feels super realistic. There's a lot, like, what they do with weather is really interesting. There's a lot of like shots of like really like deep like rain clouds, which I really like. And the sound, of course, is fantastic. So yeah, I totally recommend it. Riz Ahmed delivers phenomenal performance. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd also probably give it something in the range of like 8.5, 9. Riz Ahmed, like you said, a fantastic performance. I'd be well happy if he won an Academy Award for this performance.
So that was our review of Sound of Metal. We'll be right back after the break. That's all for this week. If you want to follow more Review Crew content, go to the Review Crew Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, as well as Orange TV Network on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and YouTube.
Find the Review Q's podcast on Spotify or on our website at orangetvnetwork.syr.edu, where you can also find our blog and more OTN information.
See you next week.